Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to a retro episode of World's Finest True Believers. When we moved the show to the Geek Ultimate Alliance network, we could not easily drop all the previous shows into the feed. So what we decided to do was to drop them every other week so new listeners can get a chance to hear them, and our veteran listeners of the show can revisit some of these golden oldies. If you like the show, please give us a review and rate us on Apple Podcast or whatever your podcatcher choice may be. I hope you enjoy this retro episode, and I'll see you all next week with a brand new episode of World's Finest True Believers. Hello, and welcome to World's Finest True Believers. Each episode, a guest and myself will discuss one of our favorite comic book arcs or graphic novels from any publisher. My name is Chris. Thanks for joining us. Now let's get started. So we're starting our second episode. I think I wouldn't say a doppelganger, but we've got another Chris on the line. So let me introduce our next guest, Chris Rimmer.
Hello. How's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming on. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am 32 years old, luscious brown hair, and I love long but still very fast-paced walks on the beach. I do a show called not Suicide Squadcast, but we're on that network called the DC Comics Squadcast with my buddy Jordan. And man, that's what I do pretty much. I podcast and I hang out with my wife and son and my buddies. So yeah, man. What else should I dig into?
It's complete whatever you feel at that point. But no, that gives us a little bit. The long walks on the beach are definitely something maybe our listeners can relate to. I like the beach. I don't know about long walks on the beach, but you know.
I got to keep the stride up. Like I said, keep it fast, but just go for a long time. I'm actually going to the beach. I'll be at the beach this time. Oh, there's a monster truck driving down my street. Don't know if you can hear that. Oh, goodness. Love those guys. Now I'm going to the beach this time next week. I will be there. Just
nice.
Relaxing. So, you know, that'll be great.
Good. So first question I was asking the guests is, what was the first comic or graphic novel that hooked you either back into the reading or just, if you remember, way back when?
Yeah, I went over to a buddy's house. As far as like physical comics go, what I was sparked by, I went to a friend's house when I was very young, and he had gotten from Toys R Us these reprints of like the first appearance of Robin, the first appearance of Barbara Gordon's Batgirl, and there was I can't remember what the other one was. And I didn't even really hang out with him. I kind of just was reading those comics, but he wouldn't give them to me. And it was one of those things where I was like, how often do you read these? I guess enough not to hand them over. But yeah, that was when I was like, this is awesome. My mom had gotten me this comic book read along to a cassette tape thing for The Rocketeer, but it was also like a 3D book when I was very, very young. That's the first one I remember having, but it wasn't like I need more comics until that moment. Apologize, I'm getting over just a week of crazy, ridiculous, sick things, but also dental things, and I'm just a mess right now. So I apologize for any coughing or sniffling that may ensue.
That's a terrible week when you got that combo.
Man, I'm just now able to chew like without it hurting. Just that sensitivity when they're having to work on things after the fact. Anyway, so my mom took me not long after. We always went to like estate sales and garage sales and like secondhand shops and stuff like that. And I found the originals really beat up, but of those two comics that my friend had, they weren't like the reprints, they were like original. And there was like an old Flash too. And so I was like, I beat him. This is the real thing. I got it. And they were just in like a grab bag of random comics. So my mom got it for me. And those were like the only three that I had for the longest time. Oddly enough, my mom didn't like me going to comic shops because like there's posters of women hardly wearing any clothes. And like, I don't know, that was weird to her, and like the violence and whatnot, I'm sure. But for some reason I could still have comics. So that's kind of like my introduction to the comic book forum. I don't remember a time when I wasn't watching Batman though, or any kind of, I've always been obsessed with superheroes. So I don't know where that comes from, or that's the kind of thing that's lost on me. And I keep meaning to have this conversation with my mom to be like, was it you? Did you do this to me? But
And thank you for doing this.
Exactly. Because we had the 1966 Batman movie, and we weren't allowed to watch the '89 Batman because it was PG-13, and my parents, again, violence and whatnot, they just tried to keep us away from that, but we managed to get there. But instead of that, they gave us the Adam West Batman movie, which I still love and can quote to this day line for line, but that was kind of the thing to hold us over, I guess, until we were a little older. But we were always watching Batman stuff, so that's curious to me. I'll have to figure that out one day, where that all started at, you know?
No, that's great. So why don't we kind of tell the listeners what we're going to be talking about today? I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, Kingdom Come. This book is very dear to my heart. And was this the first Elseworld? No, Gotham by Gaslight was. Anyway, this is one of the, I guess you said it earlier, but my favorite Elseworlds for sure. And God, there's a lot to dig into, but I'm excited to do it, man.
No, definitely. As I said before we started the show, this is definitely, if I had to rank Elseworld Tales, this is definitely on number one for me. If I had to put a number one,
Yeah.
it's there. There's just, like you said, so much to go into with, written by Mark Waid and drawn and illustrated by Alex Ross. I mean, that just an amazing combo. So do you remember when you first read this or discovered this?
I don't remember how I ended up. I mean, I know I bought it, but I don't remember what sparked that sort of interest. It had to have just been the art, because I had a poster of Alex Ross's Flash on my wall for years as a kid. And I still have it somewhere, but like, I always thought like, that looks like Bruce Willis in a Flash costume to me. I'm like, that's so cool. I want to see that movie. And then I didn't realize when I was a kid, it wasn't from a movie, because I'd also never seen that. But I think that's kind of what was the attraction. I was like, oh, wait, this is that guy that I had as art for so long. Okay, let's check it out. But that actually wasn't even too terribly long ago, probably 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago when I discovered this book. And I had it and didn't read it for a long time, and finally read it like I guess a couple years after I got it, and just like fell in love with, I don't know, there's a lot of comics like Dark Knight Returns and stuff like that, and even branching out further than that you can say like, I didn't realize, there were comic books like this. I think it was the combo of that sort of storytelling and the art together. It's all of this realism that with Kingdom Come, you have this sort of biblical, like end of the world type of tale. That's kind of, and the biblical like imagery is really like very neatly placed within the story of this, and it works really well. So that was something to me that I thought was very cool, the way that they just executed the whole thing. It just has its own feel, and anything that's come after this that tries to like use elements of this or tie into it, even when Alex Ross is involved, it still just doesn't feel the same as this to me. But that's just me. I don't. A long way of answering the question of, I don't remember when, but it was within the last probably 6 years that I read it for the first time, and I was like, yeah, this is fantastic. And I'm also jealous of that Absolute Edition. That didn't you get that? I was like,
yeah,
God.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, Absolute editions can go one way or another. They can pack it with extras or just kind of the standards.
Yeah.
This should be what Absolute editions are all about. It's just chock full of the art, Alex Ross's sketches, background information. It's definitely highly recommend. If you had to get one Absolute, I would definitely choose this one.
I'm obsessed with Absolute editions. I try not to buy them too often. Keep my wife happy that I'm not dropping that much money on these. But over the years, I've got volumes 1 through 3 of the Sandman Absolute editions. I just got Absolute Flashpoint because it was like, for whatever reason, super cheap on Amazon for like a minute. And Absolute Killing Joke I finally got, and then Hush Absolute Edition, and that's kind of like my absolutes. And Kingdom Come is one that I want. I just can never find it either new or used, like reasonably priced. I don't even. When did that come out? Is that a new thing, or?
I know they released a newer edition. If besides Amazon, In Stock Trades always run some pretty good stuff. Specials at that point. So I know they released a new edition. I don't think anything was new with it per se, but I've had this. I can't even remember when I picked it up, but the edition, let me open it up and see when it came out. Looks like 2006 this edition came out.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's probably what I've been like seeing, because people are, hawking those things on eBay for, crazy amounts of money.
Yeah, no need to pay that much. No need to pay that.
Well, what about you, man? What was your sort of like introduction to I mean, hey, it's your show, so do whatever you want.
no,
I mean, comics in general, and then if you want to lead into Kingdom Come, I'd love to hear all of it because we've never.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've ever spoken. So hey,
Spoken over Twitter, but yeah, not spoken. But no, I'm completely fine with that idea. Kind of like you said, I've been into comics for a while. I can't remember my first one, but it definitely probably involved Batman, since he's my favorite DC superhero, if not superhero of all time. So I was always gravitating towards that. I dropped off for a while, and then when I was in college, I got back into. I know the exact comic I got back into was Identity Crisis. So that was just. I never would have, just it changed everything in my mind of it wasn't just beat him up and beating up the bad guy. Like the heroes had issues, they had background, they had, just more depth to them. And so kind of since then, I was collecting single issues for years and years and years, and then got married, and kind of like you said, want to keep my wife happy. So now I just kind of collect trades and just the graphic novels and the trades that come with my favorite Marvel and DC sides.
Nice. That's awesome. That's a smart way to do it, I'm sure, like to go to the trades. I didn't get into starting buy the single issues again until after I had gotten married. And like my wife came up here to our studio / Batcave thing at some point a couple of years ago, was like, I feel like every time I come up here, there's a whole bunch of new stuff. Like, where's this coming from? I was like, come on, babe. Like, you know what you were getting into when we got married. She's like, no, I didn't. You weren't like this before we got married. But she's cool with it, obviously. But it's just like, it's funny. Like, I don't get as many single issues as I used to, but I'm just looking at I just started boxing them. People are probably cringing right now, but like I just started putting them in short boxes and like stacking them in like this closet we have in the studio. And I'm like looking at them, I'm like, geez, that's that's a lot of moolah. Anyway, sorry, go ahead. No. That's part of the reason why it's easier to put them in bookcases than single issues. I've got my single issues. Probably haven't picked up a single issue in a very, very long time, but still enjoy it, even though I've got the DC Universe at the Marvel app. And so that kind of gives me, a way to go really far back to things I never thought I'd get a chance to read. So absolutely.
It's definitely been very helpful. But thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Second guest, and you're already asking a little bit more. So no, I'm completely fine with that. So
that's awesome.
So let's get into Kingdom Come, and I'm going to read a synopsis. This is from lots of different ways people can say quick, easy. I found the Amazon one kind of set the stage. So it says, Kingdom Come, set in a not so distant future, the DC universe is spinning inexorably out of control. The new generation of heroes has lost their moral compass, becoming just as reckless and violent as the villains they fight. With Batman retired, Superman in self-imposed exile, and the rest of the Justice League nowhere to be found, it seems all hope is lost, but not for long. After a cataclysmic event cost the lives of millions, the Justice League, led by a rejuvenated Superman, returns to bring balance back to the world. However, the new guard will not go down quietly. A battle is coming between the uncompromising protectors and an untamed group of young powerhouses, one that will define what heroism truly is.
Ooh. That's much better than the synopsis in the back of my copy.
Oh, it's not. Like I said, that's Amazon. So whoever wrote it for Amazon, kudos.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So kind of want to lead into starting off with the creators of this, Mark Waid. What do you know about Mark Waid's background, or anything that you know about Mark Waid?
And honestly, not a whole lot. I've probably read a lot more of his work than I think I have, but the most recent thing I can remember reading from him actually was Marvel did like the Fresh Start thing, and it's a little convoluted in my mind. I can't remember where the issues picked up or if they started over with a number one or what happened, but he did a run with that after the whole Captain America Hail Hydra storyline ended, and it was kind of the start over point. And I really liked his run there. And I don't know if you remember, was he writing that whole Hail Hydra storyline too?
Not sure. I know he's kind of been back and forth with Marvel and DC over the years, so that I am unsure about.
I'm sure there's some staple things, like I said, that I have probably read. It's just for some reason, and I feel terrible about it because I love this book so much that like his name is never one that like stands out to me like on the bookshelf as much as it should. And I don't know why that is, but like I'm sure if you were to list some things that he's written, I might be like, okay, yeah, I definitely wrote that. 'Cause especially when I was first buying like trades and like getting caught up with a bunch of different things and just classics, I wasn't paying attention to author so much as just the books. So I probably have a bunch of his stuff on my shelf. I'm just not aware of it. But
No, definitely. Some of the quick hits of him. His first comic book story was called "The Puzzle of the Purloined Fortress," an 8-page Superman story published in Action Comics number 572 in 1985.
oh, cool.
He later, 2 years later, was hired as an editor for DC Comics, working on Doom Patrol, Legion of Superheroes, Wonder Woman, and various one-shots, including Gotham by Gaslight. With that, and in tandem, he helped co-create the Elseworlds franchise, which I did not know until doing research about.
Wow.
And in go ahead.
No, I was going to say before we go past that, what did he do with Gotham by Gaslight?
He looks like he was editor and working on that and Gotham by Gaslight. So
okay, gotcha. Okay.
So he definitely did not write it.
Yeah, I was like,
he was editor at the time.
Everything I know is wrong. Okay, yeah. I just wanted to get that clear real quick before we moved on. Because okay, cool. Sorry.
don't feel the same. I felt the same way. I said, wait a minute. When I was looking, I had to go back to my issue, and I was like, wait a minute, no, that's not it. Oh, okay, gotcha. So later on, 1992, he did a storied run on The Flash and was on that title for 8 years.
Wow. Jeez.
and he actually he created Impulse and
cool.
Flash number 92 in 1994. So that's
awesome.
I've seen issues of his. I have not read the Flash run now. Hopefully, if I have to check out DC Universe, it'll hopefully be on there so I can kind of delve into that. His first major project for Marvel Comics was one of the writers of the Age of Apocalypse crossover, and he later co-created the character of Onslaught for the X-Men line.
Gotcha.
And then we flash forward to 1996 when he teams up with Alex Ross to write this epic story.
Man, do you know, this might not be worth like trying to dig through. How far into like Elseworlds, when did Gotham by Gaslight come out? Was that like 80? Was that before like Dark Knight Returns?
That's a good question. Let me
I can't remember if it came out like sort of in tandem with the Tim Burton like 89 movie. I don't remember how all that kind of came along, because Dark Knight Returns is that considered part of Elseworlds? Like, is that, I can't remember if that has, I don't think it has the logo on at least the copy that I have. I don't know if they kind of retroactively.
No, I have never seen it put into the Elseworlds category. One could consider it just because it's on a separate Earth.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Published in 1989, so February of 1989. So right before Batman 89 came out, because I think wasn't Batman 89 in the summer, I believe.
Yeah, I think so.
So right before that.
Cool. So so they had been operating the Elseworlds for a little while before, for a few years before this came out. Okay.
No, and it's really interesting just seeing, we look back at all these writers and artists, and no one seems to be committed to one company or another. So they've definitely had, like you said, he's been kind of back and forth with Captain America for a little while there too.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I just caught some of one of his stints, and I think that they've since moved on to a different writer, and so I think that he's kind of just done with it. I could be wrong, but I know that they switched, and I didn't really like it as much. So, but yeah.
So we got Mark Waid. I actually met Mark Waid a couple of years ago.
Oh, cool.
And had him sign my Absolute Edition when he came to Heroes Con in Charlotte. Really nice guy. Just kept on raving about his work. He probably thought that's the only thing I've ever known him to do, but really nice guy. Really just a good guy that we kind of, he let me fanboy for a little while and ask him some questions about just the creation of it. So I'll have to bring that up a little bit later on.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it, man. That would be awesome.
So let's move on to Alex Ross. Just I don't know what do you know about Alex Ross besides just how his amazing artwork is?
I mean, I guess about him personally, I don't know that much. I've got a bunch of his work, but yeah, my kind of introduction was, like I said before, I didn't know it was him that did that Flash poster, Bruce Willis. But yeah, I mean, that was trying to think of what, I guess after Kingdom Come, I kind of just started gobbling up anything I could find from him. But like, I've got those, I guess they're not maybe coffee table editions that they call them. It's not a hardback though. They're just huge books. So it's like Batman War on Crime, and there's like Jacob's Ladder and all those things. I've got like a handful of those, and those are incredible. Like just having his work that large is amazing. But like, yeah, as far as him personally, I'll probably say this about anybody. I don't know a whole lot about a lot of the creatives, whether they do, put themselves out there to be known about, in a personal way. But I have watched, I don't know, his YouTube channel. I think it's a YouTube channel where he just does like little videos and stuff. And he'll kind of talk about his craft and whatnot. And it's really cool to see some of the setup for like his covers. Like he'll get actors in costume and like paint that, and I'm like, it makes sense because he's like grabbing all of those details from like an actual person wearing the suit, so it will kind of wrinkle in the right places, and it's actually like looks like cloth. And it's just really cool to kind of see his mind work, and then have these actors get to like be Superman for a few hours, or Batman or whoever. Like it's really cool to see that, so highly recommend watching that. But yeah,
no, that's I've seen a few of them, but it's just seeing him work and just make art lifelike.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I don't know. I know it takes so long probably to do what he does. I just wish I'm ready for a book by him, unless one came out and I just missed it. But I've been reading Immortal Hulk, and he does every cover. And that's worth it alone to me. But the series is good too. But yeah, it's like once a month I get a new cover of Alex Ross doing Immortal Hulk, and that's really cool. Like it's fantastic work too, obviously. So he hasn't wavered at all. He's still fantastic.
No, he doesn't. And one thing before going back, I just found some information about Gotham by Gaslight. It did become the first official Elseworlds publication, but Elseworlds wasn't a title. This was retroactively done when they created the Elseworlds label.
Okay, cool. There's a really good interview on Word Balloon, if you've ever listened to Word Balloon, with John Suntrez, and he's talking to Brian Augustin. I think that's how you say his last name. I can't remember. I'm terrible with people's names. But it's really interesting, him talking about that whole thing with Elseworlds starting and writing Gotham by Gaslight and the process of it, but then kind of watching the Elseworlds line take off from there. And he kind of talks about some of the stuff he does and doesn't like, but that's definitely worth a listen for sure.
No, definitely. I'll have to listen to that one. That one I have not gotten to yet, but it's just a great imprint. But with Alex Ross, he graduated from the American Academy of Art in Chicago and became a storyboard artist. And his first published comic book work was in 1990, a 5-issue miniseries called Terminator: The Burning Earth. So it was published at that point by Now Comics. And
was it like a movie tie-in thing?
I'm not sure. With the Terminator series, I know they just have a lot of just different histories with it, so it did not necessarily say it was a tie-in, just maybe just capitalizing on the Terminator franchise.
Okay, I gotcha.
And his first work from Marvel has been a science fiction anthology series called Open Space, but the title was canceled by issue 4.
Oh, Lord.
And then he went on to do some work for DC, the cover of a Superman novel called Superman Doomsday and Beyond. So it looks like the novelization of the death of Superman.
Okay.
I actually remember that image now steps in my head. I did have that novel as a kid, so that I just kind of, I said, imagine how memories start flooding back.
I've never heard of that. That's cool.
But he moved on. He and Marvel worked together a little bit further, and that's when he created the limited series in '94 called Marvels, chronicling the life of a photojournalist as he reacted to living in a world of superheroes and villains. So have you ever read Marvels at all?
I haven't. I think I have the first issue from a ways back, but I didn't want to like read it and not read the whole thing. And I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to write it down now. I've been meaning to actually get that because they've been re-releasing annotated editions, I guess monthly, probably for about $8 a pop. And I didn't see them till like the next to last one, I think, is coming out. So I was like, well, I'll just wait and get the trade then. But yeah, I've been meaning to get that. Have you read that?
It's been a very long time, but it's a very interesting kind of story, just as it says, looking at the world through just a normal person's eyes, in this case, a photojournalist, seeing, like, I just remember one of the it's a great image of the guy with the photojournalist with the camera, and through the lens, you see the reflection of Giant Man.
Oh, that's cool.
Towering over everyone. So
that's a really cool, that's a great idea for a story there too, especially him doing the art. Like, that's amazing. I didn't realize it was that old either. That's cool.
No, it's
not that
it's
that's old, but still.
Older when back when we were old, so
yeah.
young. And he worked together with Kurt Busiek and penciler Brent Anderson and created Astro City, first published in Image Comics 1995, later by Wildstorm. Features original superhero world and continues the theme of Marvel's, exploring how ordinary people, superheroes, and villains react to the world where the fantastic is commonplace. So it's been a very long time since I've read Astro City.
I never
have to go back and revisit it.
I've got some work to do.
and I didn't even realize it's been so long that he was one of the co-creators of Astro City. So that's interesting.
That's cool. Yeah. It's one that I've always seen, trades and stuff for, or collected, whatever. But yeah, never picked it up. I need to check it out for sure.
Hey everyone. Before we go to the next topic, we're going to head into some ads that help the Geek Ultimate Alliance keep the lights on. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they sometimes can be a bit loud. So I want to give you a 3 count in order to give you the opportunity to turn your volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be back in a little bit. So that's a little bit of background for Ross and Waid. They're the main creators of this. We kind of mentioned some other things that they have been known for doing. Mark Waid, Superman Birthright, Legion of Superheroes, S.H.I.E.L.D. and Amazing Spider-Man. Alex Ross, as we already mentioned, Marvel's. Earth X, I've always kind of equated that to Marvel's version of Kingdom Come.
Okay.
And then you mentioned it, Superman Peace on Earth, Batman War on Crime, Wonder Woman Spirit of Truth, and Shazam Power of Truth. So that there's some things the listeners can kind of dig into. And I'm actually writing down some of these saying, I should go back and read some of these too.
Yeah, I haven't. Shazam Power of Truth is one that I can't find new, but I also can't find used for a decent price. That one goes for big bucks, and it's this, if I remember correctly, it's the same type of that oversized kind of coffee table edition, whatever.
Yeah.
That and again, I love that so much, but that's one I'm always looking for, and I can't, and it's not ever amount of money that I want to drop on it. So
no, it can definitely be found. It's just like you said, just got to grab it before it goes for that big money.
Yeah. You said Mark Waid wrote Birthright. Is it?
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Yeah,
so,
Superman Birthright.
Right there is a good example. I have read that not that long ago. I just wasn't paying attention. But yeah, very good. That's awesome.
It's just when you just like the story, and then like you said, until you kind of start digging into the creators, like, oh man, they wrote that.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so would you think as we start digging into Kingdom Come, going into the story, is there any kind of setup you think new readers would ever need to know going into this?
I mean, you mean as far as like any kind of background, or do you mean like just prepping someone for it?
If someone were going into this, would they have to have any sort of background before they go into Kingdom Come?
Honestly, I don't think so. I think the story I guess it kind of holds itself together pretty well. Like, you get little explanations of kind of who these people were and kind of how they got to where they are now, or where they've been, I guess, technically, because most of them have been super active. But yeah, I feel like a new reader could just jump in and go, okay, like, I guess other than just having the knowledge of who Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, it's other players just are as characters that exist. I kind of think that's it. Like, I could be wrong, and it's coming from the mind of, knowing these things. So it seems obvious to me, but yeah, I mean, maybe there's something I missed. What do you think? I mean, how do you feel?
I fully agree. I think there's really not, outside of the basic knowledge of the main Trinity and knowing of them, I think it's just amazing that this is just 4 books, and they do such a good job of establishing not only the backgrounds of who they were before, but how they got to where they are in just 4 books. So I think I fully agree. I think it's very accessible. I think that as long as you know who is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, of these, you recognize them, I think you'll be okay, because they're going to throw a heck of a lot more heroes at you.
Yeah. And that's the thing that to me is like, I had to sort of just power through. I remember originally because it's like the new versions of characters, like legacies that moved on that they kind of touch on there, like Ra's al Ghul, and now I can't remember the guy's name that took his place. There's a lot of characters like that they don't mention too, that you kind of can just look at their costume and sort of assess, like, okay, this is probably who took over for whoever, or this character. But a lot of that they don't really hand to you, which I guess probably doesn't matter, because it's just like, okay, these are just the current heroes, quote unquote heroes, if they can call them that anymore at this point. Like, but you just kind of take it for, okay, this is what's going on. But if you look closely or have more knowledge, you can kind of say, oh, okay, they're wearing the kind of like a suit that used to be maybe Sandman or whatever, something like that. But
yeah, it's just kind of cool, the playground. And so do you know anything about the actual creation of Kingdom Come that you want to talk about at all?
I don't. I want to hear you talk to the man, so I want you to tell me, man. That sounds awesome.
Well, some of the stuff I did some research, I'll kind of point out other things that he said. More of what when we get to is Magog, is one of the things I asked him about specifically. But in doing the research, this kind of started. Alex Ross drafted a 40-page pitch for DC set in the near future, and DC really liked it, but they wanted to team him with someone who they considered to have a huge encyclopedic knowledge of DC, and that was Mark Waid. And the idea was about the sin of superheroes committed the day they divorce themselves from their own humanity. Which was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Mark Waid talks about that this was on comicbook.com, that they were reacting to the mid-90s superheroes in comics. The idea that all the new characters who were harsh and violent were beating on each other without any real sense of humanity in them, that somehow those were more popular and more vital. Your dad's superheroes were old fogies, and that was really much what Ross and Waid were reacting against. And so it's kind of interesting reading that and saying, yeah, I can definitely see that. Alex Ross kind of echoed that in comicbookcbr.com, saying it was a reaction to that stuff, but particularly X-Men. He said he felt that back then there was an egregious example of so much navel-gazing quality of what superhero comics had become, and there was almost no relation to the reality. That's why he said projects of Marvel's and Kingdom Come were intended to be a metaphor to Alex Ross, speaking of what was needed to connect more with the real world.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely see it glaring. I mean, that's awesome.
But I never, thinking back as we got older reading it, it's just a really great story. But then kind of thinking back at that time that they point that out, it's just like, you're right. There really wasn't much to the stories. It was more just hero, villain, go after. Maybe there's a little bit of more depth to the characters, but they're right. It just didn't seem like it was there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and just writing to be like, okay, we got to put them on an adventure, or we have to have them against whatever villain, you know what I mean? Like, as opposed to trying to really, and those stories have their places, but yeah, like you kind of start getting away from that if you're just doing villain of the week or whatever kind of deal.
But yeah, that's some of the background I found out in creation of this. So let's kind of dig into this. You being the guest, you kind of lead us how you want to attack this go over. So, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be in order. Just kind of talk about your favorite parts of the graphic novel, just whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah. First off, I always forget that this was released in single issues. I've actually never seen one that I can remember, like out in the wild. I'd probably get one.
Oh, you have it? Oh.
Just for the, just to have it. But like, it's something, because to me, it's just a graphic novel, but it's kind of cool every time you see like originally printed in 1 through 4 or whatever. It'd be cool to see that. I need to start looking a little bit closer. But one thing that I picked up.
I actually do have those 4 issues.
Oh, wow.
Actually, that's how I discovered it. I don't know. I have to look back how good of a shape they are, because I've read it like so many times. So it's probably not in the best of shape. But yeah, it's not like that prestige format that you were talking about with Batman War on Crime, but it was just the pages and the cover were of high quality.
Okay, yeah, I gotcha. They still do that with certain like event books now and stuff. I think like Batman Who Laughs is doing that. I know they did it for Mr. Miracle, like a little bit more higher quality sort of cover there. But I noticed for some reason I've missed it, I guess the first time, but I actually didn't realize that like Wesley Dodds, the original Sandman, is like opens this book basically talking to Norman McKay, who, if anybody hasn't read it, is the preacher that you're seeing all of this happen through his eyes with the guide, the Spectre. And it's kind of like it's cool. It's like the Scrooge kind of idea, sort of, where he's just kind of taking him around following this story. And it seems a little, the reasoning is kind of ambiguous, I guess, until the end, sort of. That was cool. That stuck out to me. I was like, oh, wait, okay, yeah, it is Sam. And they even show you like, oh, you see him in character there. But that was a cool sort of or I guess cool way to open it with this legacy character who dies, and Norman McKay, I guess, is like his minister. It's just, I don't know how I missed it before, but I gave it new meaning. I love the Sandman, whether it be Wesley Dodds or Neil Gaiman's version of Dream and all that stuff. It's just a character that I find really intriguing. So that gave it a whole new like breath here for me. I was like, oh, that's so awesome. How did I skip over that? But yeah, I think this world that they create here is so cool, because after that you move on to, and I don't have to walk through the whole book like this, but it's just a good opening and pacing to show you kind of where you're living at for these next 4 issues. And it's this sort of Planet Hollywood kind of style restaurant where everyone's dressed up like the superheroes, and it's really cool.
Planet Krypton.
Yeah. and like you like look all over the restaurant, you see so many like little Easter eggs and things that I know Alex Ross was like, oh, this will be cool. I'll put this like George Reeves Superman poster back here, and I'll put this other thing over there. And it's just so many Easter eggs. You could spend hours looking at this, but they did a fantastic job of introducing you, because right after that, then you see just these massive battles happening in the street. So it's just walks you right through where you're going to be. I thought that was paced out really well.
They give a great introduction about where we are in the world right now. And, Norman McKay, that's actually modeled after Alex Ross's dad.
Oh, cool.
So this was kind of very personal for him, and he kind of goes into that. And it's so many different editions, but I know in the Absolute, he does talk about how much this meant to him, having his dad kind of be our journeyman, the outsider looking in on what's going on throughout this journey.
That's so cool. Yeah, I didn't know that. It's one thing too, and I know that we've been just gushing over Alex Ross's art, but like part of what makes it so powerful is how real the characters do look. So you get that full emotion on their face, and not even in the sense of like, oh, like, there's a cool Batman panel in such and such book from over there, and like they really get the emotion across. Well, like to me, this is even more effective because it just looks like you're looking at a person who's suffering or is very happy or whatever, like whatever emotions coming across. Like anytime you see tears coming down someone's face, it makes me kind of choked up because it looks so real. And I'm just like, so you get a book chock full of that. It's like it's a very heavy book to sit and read through,
And did you pick up who the Flash and Green Lantern are? Which Flash and which Green Lantern? Did you pick up that? Who do you think they are? I was right on one and wrong on the other.
Well, I believe at one point they call Green Lantern Hal at some point, right? Do they not?
Actually, they make reference to Hal, but it's actually Alan Scott.
Okay, so this is the original Green Lantern that is the elderly version. Yep. Okay. When I read that the first time, I thought it was Hal too, just by what he was looking like. But it's his kind of armor. It's a big callback to he basically took the lantern and made the armor himself. That's cool. So is Flash? I mean, is that just? I mean, what the helmet says Jay Garrick, but I don't know. Is that kind of the clue there, or? No, it's Wally. Oh wow. Okay. That's when I called out. I thought it was Wally. I did not get Green Lantern. I thought it was Hal, but yeah, it's Wally West. Huh. Okay, that's interesting because I love the depiction of the Flash here, where he just becomes Speed Force, and he's just this red glowing. There's an action figure of that, and it's another one where it's like I don't want to spend that much money on an action figure, but like if I could ever find it cheap, it's just so cool because it's kind of translucent, but it's just red with the helmet, and it's like it had to be so easy for them to manufacture too. Just put it in a mold and it's red, but it's just really cool looking. It's like there's a lot of the Kingdom Come. I collect action figures covers that I really dig, and like
Nice.
that's one of them that I've always had my eye on. And they, just to go a little bit further into it, I've wanted a really good Superman Kingdom Come figure, and there's a few or a couple that exist out there, but like the DC Multiverse line from Mattel just sort of recently released like a really articulate Kingdom Come Superman figure that I'm sitting right in front of right now. That's super high quality, and it's only like $20. So
Cool.
those are definitely, this book definitely sold plenty of toys, at least for me. So
Well, speaking of, you bring up Superman, reading this or rereading it, what do you think of his status at this point, or early on before we head to the end of book one?
I love that the farm has become, his fortress of solitude, obviously. And when Wonder Woman, this is something I still wasn't clear on. When Wonder Woman goes and let me just get to it, because I was trying to figure out what was fully going on, because you see him out there and then he hits that panel on the wall and it all becomes like the grid or whatever. So I'm assuming then after that like his whole farm thing is just like he's actually growing things, but like the sky and everything around it's just like a projection.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like he has created his farm in Kansas in the Fortress of Solitude.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and that's what I figured too. But I was still just kind of unclear. I was like, what? I don't know. Anyway, I think that's awesome. That whole thing, it's sad, but at the same time, I'm like, of course he would seclude himself and just start growing things, like having a farm. And I love his like kind of rugged look with like the long hair and the overalls and all that. I think it's cool. Again, like I said, it is a sad sort of existence that you learn that he's been living in solitude because of a tragedy. But I don't know. It's a cool place to sort of start with him with the Man of Tomorrow. Well, here he is just working on a farm as he was kind of raised to be. So it's kind of the perfect intro for me, at least.
And just, he doesn't even want to be called Clark.
Right.
He just stares her down and then she says, cow.
Yeah. And at some point too, I think, Bruce is like jerking his chain. He calls him Clark. And he's like, don't call me that. And so like in the next panel, he calls him Clark again and has like this snide look on his face, like just trying to get him, I guess, riled up. But his arc, I don't know. He's written really, I don't know how to explain it. It's a very serious book. If anybody's listening that hasn't read it, that's one of the things you don't really get here. Like the humor that is in it is very like subtle, kind of. But I don't think it should be a funny book by any means. But like, It's one thing that you definitely are in for is a very, like I said, kind of a heavy read there. But I think it should be that way, and I would love to see this as a freaking movie. If it was the way that they did Dark Knight Returns, where they just kind of mimicked the art. But I don't know how you would do that with Alex Ross art in like an animated movie. So
true. It'd be interesting, but I like how, the first book gives you some answers, but it doesn't give you them all. Like, you don't know, you assume something awful has happened to Superman because he's gone down this road. And then Norman kind of asks the questions of the Spectre. It's like, what about Batman? What about the other heroes? And you kind of see exactly kind of what's kind of been going on.
Yeah.
And it just gives us a good idea of what this world is not what we think it is.
Yeah. Sorry, I just got to that part too where the Flash is like zooming in and out of the city. Just like, that's so cool. So, okay, real quick, since I'm on it, the whole thing with Wally being the Flash, is that like listed in here, or was that something that like is kind of through further research, they kind of give you those answers?
I kind of, I just assumed, I was a big Wally West fan at that point, so I really wasn't knew about the other Flashes at the time when I kind of picked this up, or at least as delving into Barry. Barry was still gone by that point, so I just always with Wally. So I just assumed it was Wally. And then in some of the extra features of the Absolute, that was one of the questions. They said frequently asked questions to Mark Waid. Who is Flash? And he said Wally.
I guess, that's awesome. As far as Green Lantern goes, I guess it makes sense because like if you look at him, there's a cape like that he's sitting down in like his deal, but like you do see a cape underneath him. So it's like, okay, I just never really noticed that before. So that makes sense with the Alan Scott thing.
Yeah, like I said, if you look close at his armor, the main symbol in the middle is pretty much the old style Alan Scott lantern.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it's hard to, because like I said, I thought it was Hal just because it was very much looked more like Hal than anything else. So
yeah, Well, Alex Ross, the men, for the most part, they kind of look the same, you know? They all kind of have the sort of same face, kind of, and that's not a knock on him, but like, so that's kind of where I was like, I have this note, like I guess it's like a planner or something, like a little notebook or whatever, and it's got his Hal Jordan on the front of it, and I'm like, yeah, it looks just like him, but it's the same thing. But yeah, so but I think that's just a testament to his style. But yeah, that's cool though. This introduction to Batman I thought was awesome too, because it's like you have these, you know, kids running from it, and then it's not even Batman, it's just these freaking, what would you even call these, mech kind of robot things that are like watching over the city.
Batman's got his city under control, as the Spectre says.
Yeah, I love how to the point that was. He's like, oh, he's fine, he's got it. They just move on.
Was there any doubt Batman would not be in control of his city?
Right. Yeah, that's another part too, that I think that like the whole Bruce thing is really cool, that he has to kind of have this exoskeleton to even really operate. Like, he's on top of his like suits at business meetings, and it's just kind of like people just kind of call Bruce Batman. Like, I thought that was a really interesting aspect too. And they get to it when he gets into talking to Luthor and all that stuff. But like, I don't know. I just thought this was a really, if you're going to go in the future and make it again Elseworlds, like, this is a really cool way to do it, and a really cool way to approach an aged Bruce Wayne that like has been beaten to where, like I said, this he has to have this sort of support for his body to even really work. And I just thought that was a really smart sort of way to approach him.
Yeah, and I like it when, you know, Superman comes back, like you see him, and it's a costume that, you know, seeing the black in the background of the S, it calls back to the old style portrayal of Superman way back when, in the, like almost the Fleischer, but you just see him just kind of staring over. And when you had tweeted at me yesterday, the iconic Justice League kind of reunited, just towering gods over them, saying we're gonna get you all back in line.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite. That's probably my favorite moment of the book, other than, I don't know what it is about the panel towards the end when Wonder Woman flies up with Batman up into the sky, whenever they're kind of having it out that she had just killed the what's his name? Vaughn.
Oh, yeah.
Either way, she freaking, you know, they're not supposed to kill, but she's taking that extreme measure of like, what do you think they're going to do to us? She, you know, impales this dude with her sword. Of course, Batman's freaking out. But yeah, when she flies him up in the sky, when they get through the clouds, right before they see the bomb coming, like there's that panel of them just like kind of far back. It's like panned far back, and it's just them like together. And for some reason, and during the day, so it's like really bright. For some reason, that panel is always stuck in my mind. It's very it's just a super cool looking thing. I kind of like want it without the word bubble. It's just like, it's just the art.
but it's interesting, like you said, that dynamic when Clark and Bruce have that conversation in the next book, just saying that, where were you?
Right.
He says, Bruce calls out him saying, you disappeared on us. What do you think I was supposed to do?
Yeah. I mean, they have that back and forth it's that same scene with Wonder Woman and Bruce too. It kind of comes back on him, where she's like, well, you think you could just come back now, and everyone's just going to listen to your infinite wisdom, and you can just tell everyone what to do. It's such a good point, but that's also totally the Batman thing to do, is like, yeah, I've been gone, but who cares? I'm back. Now listen. Like, it's so Batman.
No, it's interesting. And then you see it's interesting. It's that, you know, the Luthor's little new Legion of Doom that they've kind of he's created. It's the Mankind Liberation Front.
They refer to them as the MLF, which threw me off guard when I'm a little bit dyslexic here and there. When I first saw it, though, it looked like there was an I in it. When I first read it, I was like, wait, the what is the name of this league? Then I looked closer and I'm like, okay, it's like the license plate version of that. But that always made me chuckle. But I did think that was awesome. And, well, God, and I say that, the favorite moment. My favorite moment probably is that moment we were talking about before, where there were like the towering titans coming back. But the moment where you see them all around the table and just everyone surrounding, it's the classic picture with Superman with his hands down on the table and Wonder Woman behind him. I got the new edition that was being promoted as the Black Label edition of Kingdom Come, but it doesn't have the Black Label logo anywhere on it. So maybe they changed that. But either way, so my original copy, what the cover was, that that picture of him standing in front of the table, and then like the back, it was like a wraparound cover, so you have all the different characters. It's such a, to me, an iconic image that I had forgotten about somehow. But yeah, that one is it's amazing. What else? I might flip them through too, because I'm like, I don't want to forget anything.
Oh yeah. Well, I can kind of jump into
Sure, yeah.
the story. I asked Mark Waid and the creation of Magog, because we finally find out who really Magog is. And so that's one of the questions I asked Mark Waid, well, probably amongst everything else. And he said he kind of, that was a character that kind of Waid invented. And he said, I put it on Alex Ross to kind of design it. And he said that he modeled it after kind of Rob Liefeld's characters. He said he was kind of stealing from two parts, part Cable and only two kids, so Cable, and then kind of threw him with Scar, things going on with his eye, and then modeled the helmet kind of modeled after Shatterstar.
Okay.
With the ram's horns and stuff like that. So I don't know if they were making fun of Rob Liefeld or just using it as an inspiration for everything maybe they were trying to go or like comment on what was going on with superheroes at that time.
I've read an interview where he talks about that, actually, now that I think about it. Or maybe I heard it in a video. I don't remember, but he kind of throws some shade at Rob Liefeld. He's like, he says something along the lines of like, calls his designs for Cable atrocious, like they threw a superhero in a dumpster or something and pulled him out and it's Cable. I was like, good Lord. He ain't wrong, I guess. But I don't hate Rob Liefeld's art, but they were really digging into it. But yeah, they talked about the Shatterstar stuff. And I thought, I thought the name Magog was cool too. Again, pulling from that sort of Book of Revelation kind of imagery.
And I asked him that was the other question. I said, were you trying to be as on the nose with biblical reference? He says, oh yes, there was reasons behind it that we named the kingdom come for a reason, but that was meant to be at that point. And you kind of see that history. And now we finally get, when we see Magog and they had that conversation with what happened with Lois, what happened with him, why was he going into exile?
Yeah. I wonder, wondering about the biblical stuff, like, I wonder why, or if they just thought that was a cool approach, or if there was like a bigger sort of thing they were trying to say with it, or if they just thought it would be cool to sort of intertwine these two, like a mythology from like the Bible and a mythology for superheroes, and kind of make it be one of the same in a way. Like, did he say anything about like that?
I didn't ask him about that. Some of the stuff I've kind of researched with different interviews kind of led me to the idea that they were bringing the possible end of this world the way it was existing, with all these, the heroes and villains kind of now blended together. You don't know who the heroes are and the villains are. They both cause utter destruction, and there's no clear cut way. So if something wasn't done, the world would cease to exist. Like, they would basically destroy each other.
Yeah, man. So deep. I'm like, I could pull up Revelation, I'm sure, like meanings and stuff too, and kind of like dig into it, be like, well, wait a minute, what if this character means this? Man, it's crazy. I don't know. That's part of the thing that anytime someone's like, hey, like, I'm getting into comics, what should I read? One of the first things I always say is Kingdom Come, because I'm like, not all comic books are like this. In fact, there's not really that many like it. But like, if you want to get into it with the idea that like, they ain't just funny books, kids, like, this is a good one. And obviously Dark Knight Returns is another one, but this one to me, with that sort of Revelation thing, it's even sets it apart further than something like Dark Knight Returns in like the sort of gravity of it all. And if you want to get a good bookend that can make you be like, I want to know more, I think this is the one. But that was always something that was super intriguing to me.
Hey everyone, before we go to the next topic, we're going to head into some ads that help the Geek Ultimate Alliance keep the lights on. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they sometimes can be a bit loud. So I want to give you a 3 count in order to give you the opportunity to turn your volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be back in a little bit.
No, I mean, you kind of get like a brief intro of a lot of characters, and some characters that you didn't think would come in. I mean, I just flipped to the page right now. Orion basically becoming his father.
Yeah,
he has become Darkseid.
I was going to say,
come full circle.
Yeah, his and he looks like just he's not wearing like a helmet or anything like that, but he just looks like Darkseid in the helmet. Like the beard kind of serves for that, where the helmet kind of came around to his jawline and stuff. And I thought that was really cool. And a lot of that kind of stuff you see, like just, I love seeing all the different generations that came in after the characters that we're super familiar with. I think was really well done.
What did you think about this whole thing that kind of Wonder Woman and trying to convince Superman of putting this, I guess they titled the Gulag, these heroes that won't fall in line? What did you feel about that as you read through that idea?
I mean, it's the perfect plot device, to serve, the overarching problem at the end. You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those, it's like, no, you can't possibly, well, and I guess they kind of talk about it too, where it's like, you can't possibly, what's the limit? How big does this building get? And how long do we leave it here? Is this a life sentence for these people? Like, I was like, what's the sort of end game here? And I think at one point she even says, like, I feel like she says something like, it's what we can do right now. Like, that's kind of all we can do at the moment, with the idea of like, we'll deal with all that stuff later. But yeah, I mean, it definitely it pushes along the idea too of like, what lines are you willing to cross to do this, and kind of creating your own sort of prison and locking them all up together. It's definitely some gray area there in the right ways to do things. But I mean, I thought it was cool that it looks like the Legion of Doom headquarters.
Yes.
Like that's what I was like, that's a brilliant sort of idea there. Like, lock them in their own headquarters, or something that looks like their own headquarters.
No, definitely. And when Bruce kind of joins the Luthor's organization, I was just like, even when I first read it, when at the end I was like, no, he can't be joining. He's not joining for real. There's always another side to Batman.
And I love the look on Luthor's face. First of all, I love the Luthor design here. Like, I'm trying to think of, like, he kind of looks like a Don Rickles in this. Like, he's just kind of like the bigger guy, and he's bald, and like, but I love that look on his face. He's like, you double crossed me, and he's like, I learned from you. It was just funny that like it's Batman. Like, what? Come on, Lex. But what was another thing with that whole scene that I wanted to look at? I'll find it. But anyway, yeah, that whole thing was awesome, because that was just kind of the same way. I was like, is Batman really going to... There's no way he's really siding with them or lining up, but like, is he really willing to go this far? And then obviously, that all turns around. But yeah, it definitely was like a hard thing to read the first thing through. Like, really? We're gonna make him
how quickly he realizes who Luthor's aide is, none other than Billy Batson. Like, he puts his foot on his throat and he's trying to say Shazam. He's like, hello, Billy.
I love that. And hey, that's another tragic sort of arc. Like, all the, like, growing up from young Billy Batson to being a grown man, being brainwashed, having freaking those caterpillar Mr. Mind, Sivana's like caterpillars living in going in his ear. But yeah, it's just such a tragic end. And obviously he goes out a hero by doing what he does. He sacrifices himself. But like, it's still like, even though this is a very serious sort of take on everything, like reading Shazam, like even like the new book that Jeff Johns is writing, like going through that, like you kind of, having read this, it kind of gets your that sadness of the tragedy of the character, his end kind of will seep in there as I'm reading it, which the new Shazam book is like fun and like, they're kids and stuff. But every now and then I'll be like, oh, but there's a world in which this is where you're going to end up. Like, it's just very sad. But
you've been horribly, horribly brainwashed by the biggest supervillain in the DC universe.
Right. And you're going to end up sacrificing yourself, which just, again, it's a heroic end, but it's a sad road to that sort of sacrifice.
Definitely. And I think when you get to those big epic battles, as I guess the heroes that are in the Gulag rebel, those splash pages towards the end of the book are just amazing. I'm just always trying to figure out, okay, who is this person? Who is this person?
Yeah. I mean, sorry, I got distracted. I want to go back to that, but this version of the book, the very last page, there's a page written by Alex Ross's father, and there's a picture of him, and yeah, it looks just like him. That's crazy, but it's like written. He's just talking about his son Alex. I have to read that. That's really cool. But I always wonder, like, with a lot of these splash pages in this battle, all the detail. I mean, there's so many characters packed into each panel in these. That is so impressive to me. That and a lot of times that can get super convoluted and like hard to tell what's going on. It doesn't really happen here though. It's all very clear. Just the time it had to take to do this stuff.
One of the things I read about Alex Ross doing an interview, he said that was the biggest thrill for him, is creating, not only going back and paying homage to the old characters, but creating entirely new characters and the legacy characters. He said he just got the biggest kick out of getting that opportunity. I mean, I in the Absolute Edition, I don't know if in your edition, it actually has a page looking at all the Easter eggs, all the characters, to make sure that you know who's who.
Oh God, don't make me buy that. I gotta get it, man. That's awesome. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find one.
Yeah.
That's incredible. One thing I picked up on this time around too, like paying more attention, was all the different like cameos of non-DC characters that he kind of hides in there. So like the first one I noticed was, and there's probably a bunch that I missed, but the first one I noticed was like there's like a Boba Fett, like Mandalorian looking character, like off to the left. I was like, dude, that's awesome. So I started looking for more of that, and I'm pretty sure I saw the Shadow. I'm pretty sure I saw a Judge Dredd, and again, it's like they're tweaked to not, be copyright infringement or anything. But then there was even like Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, kind of hidden in there at one point. And I know that he's drawn awesome prints of like the classic Universal monsters, so like he has an affinity for that world too. So I was like, surely that's got to be who that is. But the other thing, speaking of that I thought was awesome, was his depiction of the Joker, which is the what is the movie? It's the actor's Conrad Veidt, I think is his name, but it's that The Man Who Laughs or whatever. That was the original inspiration for the Joker, but then he just basically here drew it to look like that guy, which is a terrifying look. If you just Google search that Man Who Laughs, I'm like, oh my God, get Willem Dafoe to look like that and play the Joker one day. That would be terrifying. But that was impressive to me. I was like, dude, this is, if you look at the original comic that the Joker shows up in, it's like you can tell they were drawing it based on those things. But like when you actually see it, like an Alex Ross style painting of it, it's like, oh God, that's an incredible Joker.
No, it's interesting, and then just like you said, just the amazing details. I mean, I don't know what's better, the Frank Miller armored Batman suit or Alex Ross's armored Batman suit.
Man, it's a toss up. That's another action figure I've wanted to set next to my Frank Miller armored Batman. It's the functionality of Alex Ross's seems, or not functionality, the mobility, but he's also flying most of the time as opposed to like physical combat, so I get it. I'm looking, it looks incredible, but I'm also like, oh man, he's like, I mean, he really kind of looks like a futuristic take on like a knight, like a medieval knight.
Like you said, Bruce is very much broken in so many different ways. After, we don't know who released his secret, but he just, after my secret got out, they came after me at that point. So I mean, he's not as mobile and not as he wants to be. So I mean, there's more probably with Alex, with Frank Miller's version of it,
right?
But like you said, when you see Clark, Superman, trying to get through to Billy and saying, "You have a choice to make: either save everyone or we're all going to die."
Yeah. That whole scene. Well, as soon as Billy or Shazam shows up on this, like building up to that moment, is just like that. I love that whole sequence too. Just the way, because you have Superman flying in, and then you see the blur of like red light. It's actually not even a blur. It's like a very defined super speed motion that I noticed. That if you saw, did you see Shazam the movie?
Yes.
Like when he does his like super fast stuff, they kind of made it look, it's like a very defined, it's not like a flash type blur. It's a very defined like effect that I think is really cool. And like, I'm just going to assume that maybe they were like, oh, that's a cool way to do it. Let's do that. But like when that happens and he comes across and takes him out, I thought it was brilliant the way Shazam fights him by just holding him and saying Shazam over and over and like moving and letting the lightning hit him, I guess.
Yeah, he knows Superman's weakness is magic, so that's all he kind of has to do.
Yeah, it was kind of risky though on Shazam's part, because what if it just turned Superman into Shazam? No, I'm kidding. No, but I thought that was awesome. And then like you said, getting to that moment where he's like holding his mouth, the way that Norman is like describing the scene, it's really heartbreaking. But yeah, when you see him come out of it, I don't know. But again, I love that moment when Superman takes off, when he finally just leaves him. Like, this is it. We don't have any more time to like talk about this. And he takes off, and then sure enough, Shazam flies up and throws him down. Yeah, brilliant. I thought that was absolutely brilliant.
And just seeing the devastation of all the death from the world, the UN deciding that everyone's going to have to, sacrifice everyone. We can't contain this anymore.
Yeah. That's terrifying to me, that whole idea. But I love the sort of aftermath of the bomb going off and Superman like sitting in there as they're down there, like just, you don't actually even see him like, oh, there's no word bubble of like screaming. He's just, I don't even know what you'd call it, just like agony. Like he's just, this has ripped him apart because then you see the body's kind of like the skeleton's revealed as he's just kind of there.
He feels he's failed again.
Yeah.
He failed with Lois, and now he's failed again.
Yeah.
And he can't believe that, it's happened all over again. And he doesn't even realize that not everyone is dead. He has no idea that there are survivors.
And like, I mean, it's just that the emotion, like I said, without having to have any kind of word bubbles or like him screaming no or anything like that, it's just silence. I just thought that was so powerful. And in the first panel too, but especially when you get back to that splash page of like him sort of smaller in the middle of the panel, before he gets up and he's going to Rex shop. But yeah, that was such a great, like, kind of, I guess the storytelling, but with the art gives you that idea of like just dead silence, like after something like this happens as the smoke is clearing. And I'm going to keep changing my favorite moments in the book, I guess, if I keep going through that. But man, that one's powerful.
It is. And like, I think you're right. You don't need to hear the bubble saying, you see it, the pain. Yeah. You put your own scream in there, and just how angry he is and ready just to tear down the entire UN. Which, interesting enough, I think there was one of the images. The UN is the old Hall of Justice.
Yeah, I noticed that when they're like, he's gone berserk, and like, I was like, oh, that is the Hall of Justice.
So, I mean, but it takes Norman convincing him, saying, lives have been lost. Yes, you can be angry, but the whole purpose of you all coming back is to show us that there's hope. We can make changes. There is a way. And you had mentioned earlier that Diana got kind of going off the deep end and killing. And I think that kind of had to do with why she was no longer looked at as their champion. And they thought that she had failed in her mission.
Yeah.
And so it kind of hinted me as, okay, maybe that's why she's going a little more brutal, to prove that she can.
Right. Yeah. Because, I mean, Batman kind of digs into that too before she is about to go off on him and takes him up in the sky. Like, that's kind of what he's like prodding her with that after she does that. And it's kind of like, okay, that's obviously like that's touchy for her. I think you're right. Like, that's what's kind of going on there. But
I did like the ending of we see Superman tribute to Shazam and Billy. Like, he did not die in vain. And we see the after effects. We see Bruce, and I like his little dig into Luthor saying Shazam.
Oh yeah, as he walks by him, and he's like, "Shut up!" I thought that was awesome. And that was a cool idea too, to like have them, they're obviously have the things around their neck, but like having them working at this hospital at Wayne Manor. And I thought that was a cool kind of idea. That whole ending sort of idea of like helping everyone recover and all that stuff, but then including the villains. And I like the white T-shirt with the red bat symbol on it that he's wearing under his brace. I thought that was
kind of like a red cross.
Yeah, exactly. What was the other? There's something else I was wanting to find. Okay, so the Spectre. So I don't know much about the Spectre, but it seems like he goes back to like his human form at the end and like goes to Norman McKay's church, and then they're at Planet Krypton later eating. So, but he's talking to him as if, is that supposed to be him? Is that supposed to be Spectre?
Yeah, it's supposed to be Jim Corrigan. Yeah, Spectre's come in different forms, but it's supposed to be Jim Corrigan. So yeah, that is supposed to be Jim Corrigan.
At the end. So I wonder, like, so it was this kind of like, Jim Corrigan, you've served your duty as the Spectre, now you can go back to normal life, or is this something that he can kind of do anyway?
I think from what I know about the Spectre, and fans can always correct me on this, I think he has the ability to go in and out. I don't think he has served his time. I think the Spectre is always, this is who he is.
Okay.
But it's given him, he can go in and out of forms. He's the embodiment of God's wrath. So
okay, that makes sense then. Because like at some point, Hal Jordan was the Spectre in one of the storylines or something. Then I haven't read that one, I don't think. But yeah, so I was just curious because I was like, that was the only thing that's still reading it back through this time. Because I was kind of like, what is going on here with the Spectre? Like, but yeah.
But I liked how, and hopefully your book had the 1 year later. And seeing,
oh yeah,
did your book have?
I love that.
And seeing the idea of the Trinity meeting up one more time and finding out Diana is pregnant with Superman's child.
Yeah. That was and honestly I had forgotten that that's what this. I remembered this scene, but I'd forgotten that that's what it was about. Was that's kind of the ending of like, hey, we want you to be the Godfather, and then they have their back and forth and leave, and they're like, all right, so onward to the future kind of thing, which is a fantastic ending of the book. Like that's one of the things that too is like you kind of, this is definitely like the tale. Another, if you didn't know that by the very last page of the book, but like that it's meant for very like mature kind of readers. It's a very mature story, is that it doesn't end like at the end of the battle and they're like, well, we saved the day, the end. Like they go further into like not this super exciting moment. It's a very like quiet sort of moment with the Trinity, like you said, eating at the restaurant that's tributing them, and they're wondering if anyone's going to notice. And you think that this one kid almost does. He's like, hey, are you using that ketchup? We're out over here. So I thought that was like a cool kind of idea and a great way to end it, like with the different heroes and stuff coming up, serving them, but then having that conversation too. So I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want to follow up, but I want to know what this kid is like after it's born. I guess what they do say that she. So that's cool.
Hey everyone. Before we go to the next topic, we are going to head into some ads that help the Geek Ultimate Alliance keep the lights on. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and they sometimes can be a bit loud. So I want to give you a 3 count in order to give you the opportunity to turn your volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be back in a little bit.
No, it's an interesting. Even if they didn't have that 1 year later, it would have been completely fine with how they originally did end it at that point. So
yeah,
it's still a nice way to kind of bring from finality to it. Now, kind of as we start kind of winding down, my question to you all, looking at the idea, the impact of Kingdom Come after its release, it's very much self-contained, but did you ever read or know the quote unquote follow-up called The Kingdom at all?
I have that. I've actually never read it though. I've had it for a very long time, and it's just it's on my bookshelf that's ever expanding of the things that I need to get to. And it's on there, and I always add stuff, and I actually haven't read that. And I think my hesitation was because, if I'm not mistaken, the art is not by Alex Ross, right?
Correct. Looking up with this very long interview I read with CBR for Alex Ross, he had some very, very blunt things to say about the Kingdom. That basically he and some editors and Mark Waid had a huge falling out. He had ideas to do a follow-up and basically was told, no, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it like this. Mark's going to do his thing, and he is not a fan. He does not look back on the idea of the Kingdom with very fond memories on, nor does he look on Mark Waid with very fond memories during that time.
Wow.
And Mark Waid had a response to that and basically said, I think Alex misremembers. I think DC told him like Mark's going to do his thing, but if you and your other collaborators want to do your thing, you can. And then Alex Frost tags back saying, no, that didn't happen at all. I was basically told that this is not the way it's going to be. So it's very, very long. And I don't know, the interview was a number of years ago, so I don't know if that bad blood is still there, but it definitely read like, they had a huge falling out. And I've read The Kingdom, but I've only read it once, and it's definitely, keep it as a separate story. It's not necessarily meant to be a sequel, but I do like what they did in JSA with Jeff Johns.
What was that? Thy Kingdom Come?
Thy Kingdom Come.
It's another one. It's on the to be read shelf.
Yes.
That whole series.
It's definitely not meant to be a sequel, but it lets us revisit.
That's cool.
Gog and Magog, and it establishes Kingdom Come as Earth 22.
Oh, cool.
So
okay.
It's just, it's very interesting. The cover arts are great, but I think I like that the impact of it is maybe this was the beginning of revisiting what heroes could actually be. What do you think?
And wait, sorry, say that one more time.
Thinking about like what heroes could be. Like they have more depth to them than just powers and fighting villains.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is like, it's not that Again, I keep referencing back to Dark Knight Returns because, like I said, in my mind, these are the two that I would usually say, like, if you want something like a little bit more serious and more like, whatever, those are the two. But even with this, I think it's more so than like Bruce being older and like grizzled and having the new blood come in. This is digging through all these different characters in a moral light, and they have all this history that we haven't read in this story. They just kind of tell you things. So there's a lot of layers to sort of peel back with them. And I think that they set each character up to have that much depth. They each have their own inner conflicts. They each have their own things they're sort of getting over and trying to set aside, or some of them not setting aside or whatever. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I want to read The Kingdom, and now I don't know. Where it's like, I would love to have it more expanded on, because again, there's so many layers, and the difference between, say, like Diana in that battle to the 1 year later, which I have a question about that, but real quick, the difference between her in most of the book, there's the moments with Clark, like when she goes to get him and stuff. But then the next time when she like kisses him before they're about to head off to battle, and he's like, "Why are you bringing this sword?" Like, and it cuts him or whatever. And she's like, "Because you never know," that whole thing where he's against it. And they like kiss, and it's like Norman McKay is like, "There's no passion in that kiss." So it's like an interesting setup, and she's kind of just growing cold. But then the end, she's going to be a mother, and she even looks more like loving and like motherly, So there's these character changes are awesome, and it's just ripe for peeling back the onion that this story is. But like, I was going to ask you, so the 1 year later, I've never thought about this, but was that in the single issue, like the original final issue?
I recently discovered that I don't believe it was. I think that I'd have to go back to, and it's buried somewhere right now, but from what I understand in the reading, I don't think the 1 year later was originally part of it.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome, though. Like, that's kind of like just an extra for the graphic novel, because like you said, the ending in and of itself, with just McKay ending with the "grace be with you all, amen." Like, that's a hell of an ending right there. But yeah. I love that 1 year later, and I've only ever known it to have that. So I was curious just now, we're talking about it. Like, wait a minute, I wonder if this wasn't there. But yeah. And so I'll stop talking your ear off. I did want to mention one thing, because this book introduced me to Dead Man, who is a character that doesn't have very many good books, in my opinion, but I love the character so much. And I love this. This is the first, like I said, first time I ever saw him. And it was just such a cool, he's kind of silly, and he's really in and out just in a couple of pages, but it was enough to make me go, I really like this. I want to know more. And I ended up, I'm still on the mission, but I'm trying to get everything he's ever appeared in, and I'm almost there. But I am almost there. But that was one thing that I love. But he doesn't ever look like this Dead Man in other books. Like, this is like literally a skeleton wearing the red suit. And I thought that was just brilliant. I was actually kind of disappointed when I went on to research him and saw that he actually has like, a body in most interpretations. But that was one part of the book that I really liked, where he pops in.
No, it's cool seeing that portrayal up there, and that the 8-page epilogue was not in the original. This was in the collected edition.
That's awesome.
So like I said, I was happy, obviously, originally with it. So now that I see the collected, it's good to know.
That's awesome.
But that's cool. That's cool that it introduced you to Dead Man. He is a very interesting character with a background. But as we kind of close out, what impact did Kingdom Come have? Why is it one of your favorites? As personally, and you as a fan.
Personally, I think the reason I gravitated towards this kind of story, and actually, I'm kind of remembering now, because I was like, I don't remember why I picked it up. I remember coming across an article of like comic books that like you need to read that aren't what you think comic books are, or something like that. Or maybe somebody sent me that, and it being on there and talking about the different biblical things. Actually, I'm 99.9% sure now that memory that's coming back is correct. And so I grew up in a very sort of religious environment. I went to a private school that was run in a church run by a United Pentecostal sort of belief system. My family wasn't really that necessarily, but for some reason, that's just where my parents wanted us to go, because they wanted us to go to a Christian school. So we did that. Anyway, so growing up in that sort of upbringing, this like intrigued me. So I think that the Book of Revelation is a really intriguing book, whether, I think for anybody, like atheist or not Christian or whatever. there's a lot of crazy stuff in there. If you just read it. So the idea of merging my favorite thing, which is comic books and superheroes, with that really interesting, intriguing part of human history now, this written literature that is, so prevalent. And it's an interesting idea. So I think that's where I really attached to it. And just his story, Norman McKay's story from the very beginning to the very end, and his sort of transformation. And what this book is even about really isn't even all the superhero stuff. It's really about like bringing him to a point of he's this, preacher. There's hardly anybody in the congregation. He just does it. At the beginning, he's talking like fire and brimstone and all this darkness. And at the end, he's talking about hope. And like this experience, this whole thing really saved him kind of, and brought him back to the person he's supposed to be. And I just thought that was really just such a cool arc. And then in the end, the Spectre, then now they have this relationship. And I thought that whole thing was really cool, which I guess in comic book form, without that 1 year later, when it ending with just Norman McKay, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, this book was about him the whole time. Like, and he's the one that had to reach out and kind of save, Superman from going too far. It's kind of like, oh, that's what this book is about. That's awesome. Like, that's really cool. So that's where I kind of attached to it. There's a lot of nostalgic kind of themes in there, even though, my wife and I, we're not like religious or anything really, but like, it's still this kind of story, like approaching it like this, holds a special place in my heart. And again, even though it's not something that I read as a kid, it still gives this nostalgic feeling. But on top of that, what we talked about before, just how layered they make these characters. This book is just, it's really hard to describe unless you read it. It's unlike any other. It really is.
Well, how would you recommend this to someone that's never read it? Well, if you could put it into words, how would you recommend it?
Oh, that's tough, man. Let me think, because I have recommended it to friends before. Like, so I guess the way I describe it is like kind of what I just said. Like, it's like you take superheroes, you take the Book of Revelation, but you make those superheroes like the big powerful forces coming against each other and like the end of the world and this big battle of like, whatever. It's that in comic book form, but also from the view of this struggling minister who's like doesn't even really necessarily believe what he's even talking about. He's just kind of going through the motions, but through the eyes of that, with like this spirit specter guide, like I guess apocalyptic sort of biblical story. And that's, I was explaining that to a buddy of mine semi recently that I was trying to get him to read the book. He still never did, but he was like, oh, that sounds incredible, and then never read it. But it's like hard. It's like there's not a quick way to describe it either. You kind of have to go through all those emotions and start being really animated and throwing your hands around and stuff. But anyway, that's just me at least. What about you? How do you do it?
I think you kind of said it perfectly in the sense of mixing the Book of Revelations with superheroes and finding out what happens when hope is gone. How do you bring that back when the world doesn't want to deal with superheroes anymore, or they have kind of turned their back on what the old ways were, and learning to come back and bringing back that hope. So I think you summed it up really well. See, you were able to put it into words.
Well, there you go. Awesome.
So looking at it, if you would love to have you back on the podcast,
absolutely,
if you would, is there one that's kind of running around your head right now would be your next choice if you had to choose right now?
Oh man, let's see. What book? Because I recently started reading, and this is a comic book sin, I know. I've actually realized, I thought I'd read it, realized I'd never read Red Sun. At least all the way through.
Okay.
So some of it seemed really interesting, but then I started getting to points. I'm about halfway there. I'm about to finish it. I'm a little over halfway. And that's what I've been doing. Me and Jordan are going to do, we're actually going to talk about this in sometime for our Patreon too, because we've been meaning to talk about this book and we just have never gotten around to it. So I told him, I was like, hey, dude, we're talking about Kingdom Come, so we might as well do our Patreon discussion for it too, for DC Comics Squadcast. So we'll be recording that in a couple of weeks probably. But Red Sun is another one we've been meaning to do. So
nice. I mean, there's countless ones out there, and so that's I've always that's one of the things I'm going to ask. I like asking guests is if when you come back on, what would you be? Won't hold you to it, but it's always nice to see what would be next you would like to talk about. So that's awesome. Red Sun is a great great story too. Another one with lots of messages in that than just being a Superman story.
Yeah, I'm digging it, man.
Yeah, great. So, well, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate your time and getting to chat about both. Seems to be one of our favorite stories of Kingdom Come. How can people follow you?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. It's been a blast. So, you can find me on Twitter. Is probably the best place. My personal page is. It's just RevRim, REVRIM. I joined Twitter when like the only other user was RevRun. So I figured, hey, why not? That's, a good spot. You can find our show Twitter handle is DC Squadcast. And I have an Instagram too. It's just my name, Chris Rimmer. I'm not very active on it because they keep changing the algorithm and I just can't keep up with it anymore. But Twitter is a good one. So yeah, you can find me there and, feel free to chat about whatever.
No, it's great. And like I said, when we were Jordan in the first episode, I'll say it again. I can highly recommend your all's podcast.
Well, thank you, man.
It's definitely an inspiration for me doing this one. So thank you for doing it.
Awesome,
I enjoyed every week. So thank you so much. For you all on the podcast, thanks for joining us. You can follow the podcast on Twitter. It's at Finest Believers, and me personally at Chris Balga, B as in boy, ALGA, so at Chris Balga. The email address for the podcast is worldsfinesttruebelievers@gmail.com. So feel free to tweet at me, tweet at the show. If you want to be a guest, let me know what book you want to go on. We'll get you on the podcast and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts or whichever platform, Google Play, that you listen to it on. Thanks for listening, and you all have a good day. Thanks again. Bye.